Hello everybody, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening depending on where you are in this amazing world. My name is Donovan Jolly and I'm here with Dallin Anderson at High Altitude Investing.
What's
and
up,
you guys
guys?
are watching the Moon Boy podcast. Every single weekend we do a podcast. We record this on Friday, we record this on Saturday, and then we upload every Sunday. So you guys can expect awesome analysis from not so much of a technical analysis perspective, but just conversation one-on-one. Me and him have been in the crypto space for a long time. Him 5 years, me going on 4 years now. And it's taught us a lot, and we just wanted to be able to give back that same information to our amazing community and all of the people that follow us personally. You guys can make sure to subscribe to his channel by clicking in the description of this video. You're going to find invitation links to join both of our Discords as well as subscribe to both of our channels so you guys can get more access to amazing content, 5 videos a week plus the podcast on the weekend.
So if you are looking for the technical analysis side, that's where you're going to find it. Here we talk about stories, sentiment, our own experiences with making money, losing money, figuring out all the ins and outs, even lifestyle choices and stuff like that.
Yep.
But today is alt season day, you guys. Alt season,
one
we've been waiting
for.
for this podcast, man. We've been waiting for the confirmation of alt season, and we got it.
Yep.
So Donovan, what's your favorite altcoins that you can share that aren't directly VIP signals?
Well, I can talk about pretty much anything that I'm invested in because I'm already transparent with everything I talk about on my channel. Realistically, to me, right now I'm exceptionally excited for Ethereum. I've always been excited for Ethereum because I've always been a believer that Ethereum was going to be that big leader.
Yeah.
Obviously, Bitcoin leads the market. Bitcoin's the driver of value.
But the altcoin leader.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and I think that's what's important because this cycle around, Bitcoin's obviously expensive. The ROI will be less significant than years prior.
Yeah.
Ethereum, cryptocurrencies like that have proven themselves over the last few years, maintained a high cap status with consistency. Those are the ones that are my favorite because they will outperform Bitcoin. That's most important. But then Ethereum is going to outperform most of the other altcoins as well. And so the fact that we're seeing it breaking out, we're seeing it kind of leading that charge is honestly what we've been accustomed to in years prior. So it does look encouraging.
It's exactly what we want to see because alt season, a lot of these altcoins that people forget to realize their favorite altcoins, a lot of them are built on the Ethereum platform. And then they're like hating on Ethereum, saying that Ethereum's a shit coin, when really, if you look at Ethereum, it is the foundation for lots of these alts. It led the market in the last cycle. What you said about Bitcoin, about being a smaller ROI, I wanted to ask you, what's your thoughts on the technological S-curve? Did you watch my video about that the other day? Do you think it's possible that how early we are in this cycle, we could actually have an even bigger percentage gain in Bitcoin than we did in previous cycles because of the S-curve of adoption?
Right. So that's a really interesting topic because, you know, all of what's happening in the world right now, the current economic system is kind of, it's had its cracks for a significant portion of time, and now we're starting to see it kind of decaying and the structure is about to kind of come falling down. And when I think that happens, it's such a unique situation right now because, you know, we have this institutional money and these new institutional exchanges, and we now have real money that's getting put in here from these billion-dollar corporations. And so with this combined with the failing system that we're seeing, you know, we're starting to see the early signs of hyperinflation on top of all of this with this stimulus money and, you know, all of this type of stuff. The fact that
Fractional reserve banking.
Yeah, and you know, this is what happens at the end of every great banking dynasty, and so we've kind of been waiting for this to happen. But I think that, you know, with all of these factors, the way we've always believed in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies was that these were not only just a hedge against this failing system, but that these were going to be the things that kind of overtake it and will eventually adopt a new digital form of payment system. And so for something like Bitcoin being, you know, viewed as store value, as like digital gold per se, you know, we could very easily be in this big hyperinflation wave where Bitcoin starts going up, they start really devaluing the value of the dollar significantly in this next bull run.
And the bear markets get smaller and smaller.
Yeah, and we could see potentially in this next cycle, maybe it's not this cycle, maybe it's the next one after that, we could very easily start to see that, you know, fiat system implode, and at that point you would experience an S-curve because fiat would be worthless and we'd have to adopt something else.
Right, so the other day we were talking with one of our friends' dads and doing a little bit of selling to get him into the markets, and one of the things that you brought up was the fact that all stocks, all gold, all real estate, all everything that's traded publicly on centralized servers in the NASDAQ, in futures contracts, in commodities markets. They're all on centralized servers, which can be hacked directly.
Yeah.
So, from a perspective of the fundamental case for Bitcoin is an unhackable blockchain, immutable.
Right.
So, when you think about all of those markets, are you one to think that Bitcoin will, and the crypto and the blockchain markets will essentially take those over completely?
Yeah, 100%. I think we're already seeing that. I mean, take Tezos for an example. Tezos is just a smart contract platform for securities and the issuance of securities and creating new securities. And so, we have the framework already that the second that the cracks start to become too big and they're amplified, and then we have to actually adopt a new system. I think we already have the technology needed to just make that transition, and that's what we're seeing with a lot of these different cryptocurrencies. Is they're kind of going out and saying, I'm going to go after this type of market, whether it's derivatives, whether it's securities, whatever it might be, real estate. We're seeing the groundwork for these companies to kind of go for that, and so I think that when the time comes, I wouldn't be surprised if there's already a lot of these people that are running these different stock exchanges currently that have already been working on the technology for, blockchain technology being implemented across their servers. Whether it's a cryptocurrency that we'd use or not, I'm sure a lot of these people in those CEO types positions, they've already started working on that framework or know how they would transition if they needed to.
I think it would be traded as a crypto. I think that they would be trying to fight the biggest trend in human history if they try to even market it separately from being a crypto.
So you're saying that you think that
the NASDAQ
all of it will be digitized and we'll be using tokenal collateral with cryptocurrencies to transact all of it.
Yeah, I mean a futures contract, if you think about it, a futures contract like oil's futures contracts, it's not like you're trading physical oil barrels.
Right.
You're trading a contract of
paper
oil.
trading.
Yeah. Yeah, so what's interesting is I think that that's pretty much where everything's going. Real estate, everything will be a futures contract, but a blockchain futures contract that can't just be controlled by one single organization or one single group or one single funding group, especially since that funding group, they cannot tell everybody the orders they have coming through. So if they get a buy order for $60 billion or whatever on some oil's futures contract, they don't have to publicly show that to anybody. And so when you think about a public ledger of all of this stuff, we'd even have real information of trading volume. We wouldn't be being told one thing and then
we couldn't be lied to.
We wouldn't be manipulated as easily, and that would add a lot of economic value in the world. Because whenever somebody else loses and another person wins, that's not creating economic value. That's stealing economic value. The only way to create economic value is when two people win. Like with our YouTube channels, we create economic value in between each other on a regular basis because both of us win by our collaborations and all of the stuff that we do together. So what I think is the more that we get away from that psychology of this person lose, but hey, at least I get a win, the more economic value we'll have in the world as a whole.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that you actually brought up a really good point on really my reason why I like Ethereum so much. It's because decentralized finance right now is really starting to take off. We're seeing a lot of different players trying to work on jumping into that sector of things, because obviously finance is going to be, I think, one of the biggest catalysts for this next bull run. Because we now have the technology and the framework that these different sorts of institutions could be developing cryptocurrency and blockchain. And I think that we'll be starting to see the early partnerships with this new institutional wave, because obviously cryptocurrency was the digitization of all of our money, right? It's like the internet of money. And, it makes sense that the financial sectors in the world are going to be adopting cryptocurrencies first and foremost. And what I like so much about Ethereum is because it is, you can program smart contracts. And this is so big in a business, because if I ever needed an agreement, if I ever needed to fulfill a prophecy based off of a ledger or whatever, and, make sure that it was going to fulfill exactly as the parameters were set, I think Ethereum is going to do a very good job of that, because, not only is Ethereum going out to solve all these issues that, would cut all of the times in which we spend doing pointless tasks, running it on multiple different servers to try and get the same effect, Ethereum can simplify that into one process. And so that's revolutionary in itself, but you got to also understand the fact that, like you said, if Ethereum dies and if you're calling Ethereum a shitcoin, if Ethereum dies, there's a huge chunk of that value that's just gone out of crypto, and it's not a good look for cryptocurrency to have Ethereum actually go belly up, because there's so much infrastructure being built on Ethereum than any other blockchain right now. Besides Bitcoin.
It is programmable money, so the idea of just like a big crypto like that dying, although it's possible, like if everything fell apart on a company and community level,
right?
It's also programmable, so if something fails, like
look at
just
the DAO
reprogram it.
Exactly. That's almost the exact thing that happened when Ethereum was, in its early days, was it got hacked for a significant amount.
I remember
that's where we get Ethereum Classic.
Poloniex. Yeah.
So I mean, that stuff's already happened, and it would be way more detrimental to have that happen now in Ethereum compared to when it first started, before it did 3,000x returns. So that type of stuff is way more detrimental now. But at the same time, like you said, because you can implement some things, because you can change some things, I think that that's going to be really beneficial. Because, as long as the biggest majority of things are decentralized in the world, the most important things are, it's okay if there's a couple links inside of that blockchain space where, theoretically somebody inside of that the system, like a developer, could go in and change something that really needed changed. Because I think that it's more detrimental at that point to sacrifice something that is performing really well and is doing a lot of good. As long as your personal identification, as long as your privacy is protected, then I don't foresee that being super big of a problem, because there's going to be other blockchains out there that are 100% decentralized. And I mean, if we take a look at like Tezos, they have a self-governance system, and so if there is ever a hack that happens,
like energy.
Yeah, exactly, same sort of thing. If there's ever a problem that happens, they can vote on it as a community, and the people that are running the nodes, they can do that.
It's still decentralized.
Exactly.
By
so
nature.
To me, I think that there's ways around it, and really because of all of this self-governance, we can, we don't have to worry so much about it.
So in ways, if we had another like DAO hack with Ethereum, in ways it might honestly be less detrimental, because we already know how to manage it. We already have governance systems in place. We have ideas of other cryptos has figured out ideas to get around these types of things. In ways it might actually go smoother than it did
Exactly.
last time.
Because I mean, in certain blockchains, you could theoretically roll back the blockchain and reverse the transaction from the hack, and you could get that money back. That's been arguments that people have said about Bitcoin, because theoretically China does own enough hash power that it's over 50%. So they could, if they really put it all together,
everybody
do something
would
like
have
that.
in the whole country
Exactly.
would have to be consensus on it,
Right,
though, which is
exactly.
very improbable.
And that's why I think that with Bitcoin's case, it's more decentralized. You're not going to be able to do stuff like that. But with other cryptocurrencies, I think that especially as we get more technological advancements, we're going to have easier ways for actually doing that, to where, it's okay if we have certain systems that aren't 100% decentralized. It's the utility that they bring and the amount of value that they're going to create. And so as long as you do have cryptocurrencies and blockchains that are protecting all of our freedoms, all of our rights and things, and our privacy, things like that, I think that those will be the ones that people will gravitate towards, like storing their personal information towards. But other blockchains that are just fulfilling simple tasks, those don't necessarily need to be fully decentralized.
I do feel like we will be able to. I agree. There's certain institutional like data transfer types of things that we don't really need the decentralization completely from the ground up.
Right.
But there's certain things that we do want the decentralization from the ground up. And what you said about voting, that honestly allows it so we can even have rollbacks and stuff like that.
Right.
But it's voted by the consensus of the community.
Yeah.
And so therefore it's still decentralized, it's still democratic by nature.
Right.
It's still what the people want instead of what the corporation wants.
Exactly.
Out of it. And I think that's fundamentally what's so revolutionary about crypto, is the fact that it's based for the people. It's money for the people.
Yeah.
And that's why Tezos, Ethereum, all these alts are exploding right now, because 90% down from their high, the altcoin market, that's undervalued for the technology that we're seeing.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care who you are, I don't care how big your short positions are, I don't care what FTX tokens you're holding. Crypto's gonna explode. I have never been more confident about anything in my entire life.
Yeah. See, I agree 100% with everything. We now have more framework for institutional investors. We have an on-ramp for these people to start buying crypto easily, efficiently, safely. And all of the framework now is better than it's ever been in the entire history. When we got in, literally the only people into crypto were drug dealers and nerds. That was literally it. And now, previously, up to that point, it wasn't even hardly worth that much. At that point, it had peaked at $1,100, and that was the first time where it started to get accepted as, okay, this isn't just some funny money. Like, even though everybody still viewed it as just a bubble, they started to actually take note of it. And you know, now that we're starting to see institutions that we can see through analytical data that they're accumulating Bitcoin, and they're accumulating lots of Bitcoins all at once.
And volume on the charts.cointrader.pro.
Exactly. All of this stuff is just taking off, and you know, looking at all of these cycles, it looks almost identical to previous market cycles we've seen in the past. I mean, pick and choose whatever market, it doesn't matter. It's the human emotion that, you know, creates these cycles.
Any market, any time frame, stocks, gold, whatever.
Exactly. And now we're getting ready for that big run, and I think a lot of people are severely doubting it. I know they are, 100%. You can see it everywhere. But that's the thing, is there's a reason why most people will wait until the market starts uptrending and starts breaking out before they'll ever buy. And it takes a special type of person to be willing to stick to a plan and accumulate when there's max amount of fear, because that's also where you're going to make the most money. It seems like a bigger risk when you're accumulating at those points because everybody else is telling you it's bearish.
But it's a smaller risk.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, it's so worth the risk right now.
And it feels so good to be, with all the trading information that we have today and the knowledge from all the different analysts, the courses we've taken, the years of practice, the market cycles we've looked at. It's fun right now to be able to go out on a limb and be bullish, even when a lot of analysts we used to look up to are making terrible trading decisions publicly right now. And to be able to just trust myself rather than another person on the internet, that's what we want to empower for you guys. Because that's what we want.
Very empowering.
To be able to know for yourself to put money in rather than just trust a person. It's good at the start to trust a person, especially if they're good traders, because then you learn, you pick up on their ideas and stuff. But fundamentally, we want to teach you guys how to fish.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. And you know, that's one of the biggest lessons that some of the best analysts that I've learned from have always said is you always want to trust your own analysis. And if you're going to be making your own trades, you don't want to be listening to anybody else but yourself. Win, lose, or draw. You're not most likely going to draw most of the time, but win or lose, draw, you're going to be learning something, and you can take something away to the next trade, and that's the most important aspect. And you know, we're seeing all of these people. It's very similar to what we saw at the top of the cycle. Very delusional people making crazy outlandish price targets
for the bear.
Yeah, now it's just switch, and it's just a bearish perspective where we're seeing Ethereum going to $8. We're seeing other cryptos basically fully retracing, and it's just like
that's their prediction.
Yeah, exactly, and I understand that, but I also remember those same analysts that are making these calls now were making those outlandish calls at the top. And so, you know, you got to pick and choose who you trust. For me personally, like you said, I think it's one of the most empowering feelings in the world to be able to have enough resource and knowledge that you can, you know, do technical analysis, and you within yourself feel like you know exactly, or not know exactly, but you have a really good understanding of at least if you are wrong, what you're going to do, and if you're right, you know, what would happen from there. That's the most important thing, because we're always going to be wrong with trades. That's just the way it goes. But how you manage that loss means a lot, and then how you manage that win means just as much as well. And so that's the biggest thing with this.
I was just talking with somebody on Facebook the other day. Somebody just messaged me, hey, how do I get into this crypto stuff? What do I need to do? One of the questions she asked me is, like, do you ever lose money on trades? I'm like, yeah, I lose money on trades all the time. But I make so much more off the ones that I make money on. Those little ones mean nothing to me. In fact, they do mean something to me. They teach me something. And every single time that I have one, I make more the next trade because I've learned what I didn't do that trade. And that's fundamentally, it's a growth mindset. Instead of just thinking you're going to instantly understand this stuff, like, have a growth mindset and be willing to make a few mistakes along the way, because that's where you're going to learn how not to FOMO, how not to say it's going to go to $1 million per coin at the top, how not to say it's going to go to 0 at the bottom. Just the basics that really help you understand the cycles.
I agree. And honestly, if you ever learn from good analysts and just people that are profitable inside of this market that have been around crypto, been able to trade the cycles, one of the first things that almost every single person, I don't think there's been a good trader that hasn't said that they've done this. When they first start trading, they blow out multiple accounts.
Yeah.
And that's just
one,
it goes.
usually, or two.
Depending on how smart you are and how quick you catch on, because you can keep blowing out account after account after account and never learn anything at all. But
that's gambling.
Exactly. And at that point, if you've blown out 2-3 accounts, start to really look at yourself and what you're doing now. But that's a pretty common thing is, when you begin this, you got to accept that you're going to lose money. You got to be, willing to lose all of the money that you put in. Everybody says that they understand that rule until they actually,
until they mortgage their house at the top.
Exactly. They don't. People don't fully realize like how crazy the emotional attachment urges will just take over your entire being. So it's very important that you're smart about this stuff, managing risk first and foremost. Because just today I woke up, checked my Discord, had a message from some guy, and he said, if you had $4,000 that you knew that you couldn't lose, what would you invest it in? And I just told him, don't invest it. If you don't invest anything if you don't think that you can. If you think, you have to be willing to lose all of the money that you invest. And that's rule number one. So I had a friend reach out to me on Facebook today. This last couple weeks I've had a lot of just random people that aren't investors or anything wanting to buy crypto. She reached out to me, and the first thing that I always tell every single person when I give them any sort of advice around cryptocurrency, only invest what you're willing to lose. You gotta just, all the money you put in there, you gotta just be willing to kiss that goodbye and just expect that you're never getting it back.
But it's with that mindset, it's with that lack of attachment. People are like, what, not attached to my money? Mm-hmm. It's your attachment to the idea of money that's stopping you from making it in the freaking first place.
Yep.
If you're not willing to take any risk at all, you'll be broke for the rest of your freaking life. You'll call yourself a poor man. Mm-hmm. You'll act like a poor man. You'll make poor man decisions. Mm-hmm. And you will not be financially stable or free. Mm-hmm. But if you let go of money and you don't worship it, you don't idolize it, and you're willing to take risk, it'll 10x, 100x, 200x.
Yeah.
It'll Tezos tell you Bezos, which really looks like the next Amazon, you guys. Check Donovan's Twitter. I was freaking out about it the other day.
I'm going to make a video about it this week for sure, Monday. I think that'll be the Monday startup for the week because I'm excited about everything that's happening. We're seeing... We're talking about cycles earlier and how these cycles look just like cycles we've seen in previous markets, and that's what's really encouraging for us to see. Tezos and Chainlink both following so closely to what appears the Amazon cycle from 1998 to 2005 approximately, and then right before it literally did like 200x returns. And so we're seeing these cryptos doing the same thing, but you also got to remember that from in the same amount of time in which Amazon went from the same market structure as what Tezos and Chainlink looks like, took like 6 to 8 years, whereas this has happened over a year and a half, less than a year and a half at this point. And so, we're going to see a bull run coming after this, and that bull run, will be probably a bigger percent return than even the Amazon cycle, the entire Amazon cycle, and it'll take,
less time.
90% less time at least. It's crazy that we have this opportunity. And I know you've been talking about Tezos. You've actually bought some, starting to see those profits. And we both know the value in these cryptos. And for me, one thing that a lot of traders will say is that, and what we always say and what we just said is, you don't want to follow too many opposing forces and outside influences. Well, but one of the best things that I ever did was having a Twitter account and going through all the hashtags and seeing other people's analysis and seeing other people's stuff. Even though I never blindly made a trade based off of some of their stuff that they posted, it would give me new insight to different cryptocurrencies. I would, see somebody talking about something, share an article, go read the article, and I'd start to learn about these different cryptos. And because of that, we've put ourselves at this big advantage over the rest of the market because we know which coins most people are talking about. We know which ones were the biggest, most institutionalized coins that are designed for institutional adoption, because this next cycle is the institutional wave. And so it's important that you understand what cryptos are going to be the first ones to get that institutional money, because my opinion is all of the altcoins are going to pump regardless, but the only ones that are going to survive are the ones that actually got the institutional money into this cycle. All the other ones at the top of the cycle will still have a correction, but all the other ones that didn't get adopted by mainstream use and corporations and institutions, those are going to be the ones that die out. And so it's very important that you know what you're investing in beforehand.
The leading coins.
So that you can actually make those consistent returns, because it is too risky if you don't don't know.
And one thing I want to bring up too, and this isn't to make you guys want to FOMO, this is just to understand trend analysis, but the markets as a whole in the big picture are still down, like especially altcoins are still down like 90% from their peaks. So buying right now is not FOMOing, you guys. Always is better if you wait for a red candle. There's a small red candle right now on Bitcoin.
You could make the argument for the last Bitcoin cycle if you would have even bought the all-time high of $1,200 and just held.
It would literally, you would make so much money by just even buying the all-time high. If you now, there's more of a psychological weight to that. You'd have to forget about your investment, not look at it, because it's harder to watch it drop.
Yeah.
It's always better to buy the dip. But if you look at Amazon, once it bottomed after the 2003 crash, the internet bubble crash, everybody was like, "Oh, internet's dead. It was just a hype. It's stupid. It's never coming back." That's what crypto is today. And what's interesting about Tezos and Amazon is Amazon pulled back like its biggest pullbacks were like 20 or 30%.
The entire bull run.
The entire bull run. So everybody's going to expect, and you watch this as far as sentiment goes, and what you said about following on other analysts, you find a lot of really good information, really good coins, and then you also see a lot of plebs or new traders that don't know what they're doing, and you see the language they're using, you see how they're fighting the trend, trying to go short the whole way up. That's what I expect to have happen. A lot of people will try to short the markets the whole way up, thinking the trend is going to end early or that it's going to drop like crazy, when the biggest dips we're going to see are like 30%.
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty similar to, I mean, if you take a look at the last Bitcoin cycle, how I think the biggest sell-off was like 37%, maybe 40%, but I don't even think it was 40. You just had these short-term pullbacks before it just created more and more parabolic trend the entire way up. And I think that right now with what we're seeing with altcoins can dump a lot and they'll retrace hard. Like if we look at Ethereum, when it retraced out of that ascending triangle after it sold off from like $450, that was probably a 60% drop, but it was immediately bought back up. And that's the difference between, other markets and then this market is a stock market will be less volatile and it will be more consistent over a longer period of time. Whereas these cryptos, it'll be consistent, but you're going to have way more volatility, and you got to be prepared for those days where Bitcoin is this is the perfect bull run that we've ever had, because it really awakened our senses to what potentially what differences can be made in this cycle compared to ones previously. Because this Bitcoin cycle from 14K to 3.8 was 72% decline. We've never seen a correction that big in Bitcoin, and I think that that's going to set a major precedent to expect the unexpected for this next cycle. I think that overall we'll still get those same big returns and the bull run will be very big. However, we got to be expecting.
You're talking about the 2019 cycle when it went from 3K to 14K and then back down to the price point, the 4,000.
Yeah, the last year
point.
And a half.
Yeah, so every other bull run, when it started its next bull run, it retraced just in the same way that we just did, but the percentage this time was a little bit bigger, which honestly tells me it's more bullish.
Yeah.
Because institutional money just bought as much blood, they drink as much blood as possible. The whales drink blood, you guys. And it tells me it's more bullish. Now, there will be the dips. Maybe they are bigger than 30%, but they're not going to be freaking 70 or 80%. They will when the real blow-off tops come. There'll be big corrections like that. But you really have to understand that when a bull market's in place, going short and fighting the trend and expecting 70, 80% drops after we've already broke previous all-time highs or after we've already started new uptrends is dangerous until we get blow-off top structure and clear bull traps and a clear market structure that actually shows it's going to reverse. Because otherwise, you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
And it's just, even in a smaller time frame, when Bitcoin hit 4,000 up to the prices we're seeing today, the freaking 7,400 peak that we saw, the entire way up, everybody's saying Bitcoin's going to start a downtrend. Everybody's saying Bitcoin's going to go to 5,000. Everybody's saying Bitcoin's going to double bottom. Everybody's saying Bitcoin's going to go right to a new low. It's going to rising wedge to a new all-time low. Yet we've done nothing but trend up. Every single time we see a panic day, it gets bought right up the next day, and the trend is extremely strong for the upside, and people are going to fight it the whole way up, I promise you.
Yeah, and I think that, I continuously see the exact same argument almost from every single person that's bearish or just shows a lot of uncertainty with the market. And it's because they just don't expect that we'll have a bull run because of all of what's happening on a global scale right now with the pandemic. On top of that, just unemployment in America. All of these factors kind of, people just don't expect that retail is going to have money to even buy this dip. But
stimulus checks. Everybody's putting their stimulus checks into it.
There was a graph that I just saw Brian Armstrong, from the CEO of Coinbase, posted, and it was a graph that showed the amount of Bitcoin purchases that equaled the exact amount of the stimulus check. And on the certain day, there was a big pump and dump. And so, there's a lot of people that were buying their Bitcoin with that stimulus check. I had a lot of people in my Discord buying XRP with that stimulus check.
Yep.
A lot of people on Twitter and seeing all of that stuff. And, people are going to buy crypto regardless. I think that it's a big myth that people are hurting more than they actually are. The people that were hurting and are really detrimented by this weren't even buying crypto anyways.
Yeah.
And so, they weren't the ones that we were even watching for to begin with. The people that have been investing in crypto generally are business owners, people that have a little bit of money that they can play around with, and it's not going to just wipe them out if they lose it. There are other people that are highly leveraged into this stuff, but the biggest amount of addresses that are holding Bitcoin are institutional investors that have 1,000 plus Bitcoin, and it's really just a bulk order that they're just holding and sitting on. If you've got 100 plus Bitcoin, you're not even worried about this. If you've got 3 Bitcoin, you're really not even worried about this.
If you've got 3 Bitcoin, you're set for the rest of. If you get 1 Bitcoin in your life, you're set for the rest of your life.
I think that's a huge goal. Everybody should aim to get at least 1
I had
Bitcoin.
32 at the top of the last cycle.
32 Bitcoin. That's a lot of money.
So that was fun. But, I think that people will put money into the markets with their stimulus checks. People will figure out a way to make money. The unemployment is almost something that shows how many people are looking for new ways to make money for themselves. And I think that unemployment number just more means that we're going to have more self-employed people in this world. People that start trading, people that start YouTube channels, people that start businesses. We're just going to see a bigger trend in all of those things. Everything's becoming decentralized. It's not just cryptocurrency. YouTube media has been decentralized since YouTube. And we're going to even make people are going to make a decentralized YouTube in the future, maybe even us. And that decentralized YouTube will be something that is, right now we have decentralized YouTube in the sense of decentralized media in the sense that anybody can do it. Anybody can start a YouTube channel, start making money. You don't have to sign a contract to the freaking Hollywood people or whatever, you know what I mean? You can start your own, you can be your own contract, but then it's going to be, even from a technological perspective, that there will be a decentralized YouTube in the sense that it won't be a centralized server as well. So there's layered, we're just moving towards more and more decentralization in the world in every single area, every area.
And it's gonna be super beneficial once we do start, because we've already been moving out like this, and I think that this is just going to create a lot more online business, and that's going to be the biggest thing. Because honestly, I think that that's going to be the biggest thing for people, young people. I mean, even if you're like 40 years old, like, you can still make an online business. It's really not that difficult. You just have to educate on yourself on some things that are really important. But anybody can learn how to make an online business. Drop shipping was really big. That's something I looked into. And I'm seeing a lot of people on Twitter that have been doing a lot of drop shipping. And because of all of what's happening with the coronavirus, their profit margins are going up because they're just finding stuff that's high demand. And so in times like this where there's tons of fear and people are freaking out, that's where you're going to be making the most amount of money. If you switch that mindset from, oh no, I'm screwed, like I'm broke, I'm going to just starve to death and die, compared to, you know what, I lost my job, I've got a little bit of money in the savings. What can I be doing to, help myself on the short term to survive? How can I make ends meet? And then what skill can I be learning that's going to continue to create longevity in my overall, business approach? And that's going to be a big thing. I think online business is the way to go for the 2020s and beyond from this point. I think you're putting yourself at a mild disadvantage by trying to go into an industrial type of place, because that just seems to be, it's dying out. Whether you like to believe it or not, it is dying out. And there are going to be some professions that you'll be able to still make a good living and you'll do better in times like this. But overall, starting an online business is going to be important, because when you have an online business, it doesn't matter if your country is being negatively impacted by something. You're tapping into a global scale, and you can sell products anywhere around the world. And that's the coolest thing about the internet, is the fact that I think with all of this corona and all of this stuff that's happening right now, you know, this is just like you said, it's waking us up and it's giving us an idea of how can I make money elsewhere. I've already been seeing a lot of people posting on Twitter about, you know, people that had to commute to go to their 9-to-5 job every day, and how they've been scheduled to work from home since the quarantine happened, and they've found way more life purpose working from home and doing that.
Yeah.
And so whether their job keeps them working at home or not, a lot of companies will migrate to that, because they'll realize higher productivity, my people are more happy, it'll create more productivity for my business, higher profit margins. But then those same people that realized, hey, it was way more fun working at home, you know, F this place, I quit, I'm going to go start my own business. I think that that's really what we're about to see a big thing of, and I believe that's why we've been hit up by so many random people out in the streets, is just because, you know, they want to make money somewhere else, they don't have a job right now, they keep hearing us talk about crypto, they keep hearing it about
they
on the
see
internet.
that we're making money every day.
Exactly, so that's going to be a next big wave, I think. And
I
we're
agree.
just seeing that.
And everything's moving towards automation as well, and so what you said about industrial places, like, you know, You've mentioned before that you spent time in the oil field working before, and places like that, like, everything's going to be automated in the future. I don't want to get into exact details about it, but just understand that the world of automation will be a world of lower stress, because all of a sudden humans don't have to do the tedious things that drive us crazy. Instead, we can create art. We can make YouTube channels, we can educate on investing, we can figure out how to colonize Mars, we can do whatever, we can shoot for the stars, literally. But we are having the translation process, the conversion, the transitioning process of the old world into the new world right now. And it's not going to benefit everybody. It's not going to benefit the people that try to fight it. Well, it will benefit everybody. It actually will benefit the people that try to fight it as a whole. Right. Just like the internet benefited everybody that said that it was crappy and wouldn't help them. But if you go with the water, if you flow with the water, you're going to be benefited so much more abundantly. And you won't be bitter about it either. Because there's people that are still bitter about the internet, even though without it their lives would be crappy. So it's really cool what the internet did for information, you know, cryptocurrency and blockchains doing for money, and not only just money, but that's the very, very beginning of all of this. And that's the fun part of what we do, is we do a lot of different sorts of speculation, and, you know, we're only starting to see digitization of, like, money. Over the last couple of years, we've started to see implementation of different sort of decentralized finance and things like that. So we're moving towards that, but mostly everything's still geared around money and finances. Eventually, we're going to hit this point where blockchain is implemented on all fronts. It's not just going to be the internet of money, it's going to be the internet of things. And, you know, that's going to be the most exciting part, where everybody here watching this has a real opportunity of making a lot of money in the process, just by being an early adopter, understanding how the technology works, finding an issue in society that can have an immediate fix through crypto or blockchain technology, and patching that hole. And, you know, that's going to be the big thing to make a lot of money, I think. I wonder, and this is kind of a very futuristic idea, and you have to tell me what you think about this, but I wonder if the blockchain will also be the internet of consciousness because of artificial intelligence, and how artificial intelligence isn't even necessarily artificial. It is intelligence in and of itself. And so when and if we're all connected to technology in the future, the blockchain will be a way that we can have consciousness immutable, so it can't be hacked or destroyed. And I almost wonder if it'll be the internet of the consciousness, which is even more so than just information, but behavior and understanding, and like a mass network. Because I think basically what happens is, in the technological S-curve, is the internet gets invented, that goes crazy, and then what happens is, when the internet starts leveling out, an invention because the internet was created gets invented, that starts going up, then an invention because of that invention starts, it just creates S-curve upon S-curve upon S-curve upon S-curve upon S-curve. And so, in my view, we're headed towards a world of complete technological integration, whether people want it or not. It's going to be that way, and blockchain is fundamentally the thing that makes that possible on every front.
I would have to agree 100%, because I don't think that whether you, like you said, whether you disagree or agree, it's going that way no matter what. Neuralink's already,
a thing.
Yeah, like it's not just some.
We had Google Glass before that, which was pretty similar to integration.
And the thing is, the technology that they're actually showing us is one thing, but the technology that
they're developing,
that's completely different. So that's the thing people are failing to.
Illuminati confirmed.
And so I think that's the one way that we could. Because we always have this big fear of artificial intelligence is going to take over and kill everybody. Because eventually it'll become self-reliant, and it already is basically, and it'll just decide, you know what, humans are more destructive than they are good, let's just wipe them out.
Right.
And I understand that perspective, but at the same time, we as humans have the head start, and I believe that through technology, we can actually program AI and program our systems to where, like you said, they're immutable, they can't be hacked. But you can also make it to where it's hardwired inside of them that they can't fix themselves. They can't just start changing up their own belief systems. It's programmed the way they are. And so for that...
A symbiotic relationship rather than competitive relationship.
Exactly. And I think that'll be a huge catalyst, because at that point, we could program them in a way that they're not just going to start killing everybody. Because AI is huge and it's groundbreaking work, and it would simplify all of what we do in common society. All of these industrial jobs would be completely automated, and if you're somebody that's big in the industrial field and you're a little bit older, that might be really negative towards for you guys to actually hear. But this is the way that it's going regardless. And
it's actually positive, because just like what I was explaining about the internet, everybody always thinks it's negative, but it ends up creating so much extra economic value that the same people that were complaining that they lost their oil field job are getting welfare checks, and they're getting paid tons of money because there's enough economic value in the world that there's money to go around. The scarcity mindset is what makes it so people think that there isn't enough, or that if one industry dies, it will be bad for others. If one industry dies, it will flourish thousands of others as new ones are created, which in turn creates economic value, which trickles to everybody. No matter who you are, even if it's Africa and you don't have access to food, like that trickles down. Think of how many millionaires are creating foundations that feed people in alternative countries because of the fact that because of the fact that economic value has gone so parabolic that we have enough to give more.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think it's 100% a terrible idea to put that power in the government, because it's just
centralized.
Proven. Yeah, exactly. Because I think that all of these things are going to be super beneficial, and the more that we transition to, the more that we have capitalism, honestly, true, genuine capitalism, where anybody can go out, make a business, that same person can go start a program that feeds the homeless and stuff. That's the most important thing, because right now everything's too centralized, everything's too focused on a government, and the government that's supposed to be doing these things for us aren't doing any of those things. The people that are supposed to be getting help are still starving. We have all of the resources needed to fix these issues. We just have these centralized authorities that aren't actually doing it. They make more money by them just taking and making false promises than they do helping anybody. And that's this small-minded mindset where, the second that we invest back into ourselves, we stop trying to just hoard all of this wealth for a select few people that, just use it for control or power. The second that we decentralize that power, we give it to the people and we invest back at the bottom of the pyramid structure and the wealth structure. Those people that never really had a chance, we can put some money towards those people, get them in a functioning place where they can at least have all of their basic needs taken care of. And then at that point, we can use these same people towards developing the infrastructures, towards actually doing jobs that matter, towards, other things. It doesn't even matter. There's so many limitless possibilities. And that's the thing where, right now we're at this stuck point where we have a lot of greed, we have a lot of corruption. The gig is up, people are becoming hip to it, they are aware that this stuff is taking place, and they're fed up with it. They're tired of saying the same people.
Waking up, literally, exactly, to what has been going on for hundreds of years.
Exactly. And crypto is going to be a huge catalyst that I think people our age that have woken up to this and do see, instead of us just being angry about it, we always say, build the alternative. Go out and do something that's going to directly
make something of it instead of complaining.
Yeah. And I think that our generation, with crypto and with blockchain, we're going to start to see, people viewing that like, this is my hedge against this effed up system that everybody hates. Like, this is my way to fight that. So
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and I think that the thing that really catches people off guard is that the old system was taught basically as a religious ideology. People don't realize this, but the old system of money is basically a religion to them. Mm-hmm. And they worship that money. They worship the way that it functions. They worship the society behind it. This is extremely controversial, but I'll be a little bit polarizing right now to say this. The government structure is basically a large religion.
It really
Go look at the rituals that are practiced, and you will realize that the government structure is basically a religion. Now, I have nothing against religious organization. I think they provide tons of value for the world. But fundamentally, the way that it's set up is essentially that structure. Now, that can be good or bad. You can have good values being taught. You can have fundamentally positive values being taught, like creating wealth rather than greed. Mm-hmm. Or that system can be bad, and you can perpetuate greed, you can perpetuate negative things. I personally think we've had a really good system, especially like a couple hundred years ago. It's just evolved into something that may have gotten a little bit corrupt and bad. And I'm not saying as a whole in any way, there's just a percentage of people in this system that are that way. But my personal definition of what greed means is when you take what I talked about earlier at the start of this. When you're taking from somebody else, you're stealing value rather than creating it. Mm-hmm. Wealth is when value is created for both parties.
Yep. Yeah. And, we're all super passionate about Bitcoin and crypto because we've always viewed it as a hedge against, centralized banking. Centralized banking is the thing that enslaved the United States government. Centralized banking has really enslaved the entire world at this point because, they loan money to the government, they charge interest, give that 100 years and you're going to be in debt like we are right now. And, we've seen this, we've seen how the system works, we're seeing, a lot of these politicians are on payrolls for these bankers and these big corporations that have a lot of money. They bought and paid for the political figure that they want to preach their bias. And, we have this illusion that they're really going to be doing these things, and then they go and do the exact opposite. And through decentralization, we're going to have a new power system to where we can actually vote on an immutable ledger. We know exactly who is getting the votes and where they're going to. We're going to be able to, branch out of this problem where money has seemingly caused a lot of corruption because people can be bought out. It doesn't. Yeah. They push their
and the money itself was created by people in the sense that it was just a fake system, whereas this money is created by everybody rather than a select few of people.
Yeah, exactly. And with crypto, you always hear the same exact argument from older people that don't quite understand it. They'll always say, well, it doesn't have any intrinsic value. I can't hold it in my hand. And I always think, they always say it's not backed by anything. And, it's got the best backing in the world. It's backed by the internet. Yeah. The internet fails, the entire society fails. Yeah.
It's backed by math that is unchanged.
Yeah.
Math is a law of the universe.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think that's the best fundamental core principle that we could ever have, realistically. I mean, the internet itself is society. The internet fails, society fails to exist. Yeah. And we have to kind of, build that from the ground up. Society would still exist, but it would take a long time to build the pieces back together and get back to that point. Where, I lost my train of thought. I don't remember where I was going. But
back to the corruption thing, the greed aspect just comes from a lack of decentralization. It's just human nature over time. It's not, it is, they have to take responsibility for their actions, and it is their fault that they made mistakes, but it's also something that was learned and in the situation was really easy to have happen. So there is a degree of forgiveness we have to have for these people. I firmly believe that, no matter what they practice. And And for me, you know, you look at like the food industry or the pharmaceutical industry, these are greed-based industries. You know, but we're waking up. For the past 10 years, we've moved towards more natural, organic, healthy food sources. We've moved towards more people are looking into like herbal remedies, doing meditation for healing rather than taking a psychiatric medication or something like that. There's just alternative ways to heal from the inside out rather than patching a Band-Aid on real quick as a quick fix. And we're moving as a society, I feel personally, we're moving more towards a higher state of consciousness where we're more concerned with the betterment of humanity as a whole rather than the benefit of me right now in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, we're seeing that playing out already. I think the people as a whole, as an entire populace, have become much more empathetic towards other people, especially because we've seen so much greed. We've known we've been lied to for a significant portion of time. I was just talking to your dad downstairs about that. Just the simple fact that, you know, the news said one thing, and then they said that something wasn't a big deal, and then a couple weeks later they came out and said, okay, well, we lied to you guys just because we didn't want everybody to go and, you know, make a big panic. And the second that, you know, you hear that, it's like,
what can you trust?
You can't trust anything, because if they're just going to lie about that and then they blatantly tell you that they just lied to you, everything has been a lie up to this point. And that's the scary part. You don't know what to trust. You don't know what is true or what's not. And, you know, I think that with people like our generation and with these other generations starting to wake up to this, you know, the younger generations come up, and I'm just seeing it more and more and more. People, the younger people, you know, people that are 14, 15 years old that I talk to, they're even more awakened than even I was at that age, and it's only growing.
They're so open-minded to all of the stuff we talk about. It's like they understand without even having to question it.
Yeah. They see the value, and we're starting to see that really start to take root. And with the last couple of years, and I think with all of what's happening right now especially, it's only just amplified that 10x at least.
Yeah, the openness towards everybody, the openness towards understanding each other, the openness towards forgiving each other. I mean, even the war on drugs, man, there's a lot of people that used to be prosecuted because they smoked pot or something like that, you know? And it still happens, of course. But we're moving towards an awakening of the whole species. And, you know, I've personally experimented with cannabis. I don't really use it much anymore. But it was one of those things that, for me, early on in my life, I did have depression. I was confused. I did believe the system. And there's just certain things. Cannabis was one of the things that awakened me to how screwed up all this stuff is. And it's a medicine. I believe it should be used in the right set and setting and not abused or anything like that. But just an awakening towards all things, all medicines. That's an organic medicine that can help so many people in this world, bro. My grandpa suffers from Parkinson's disease. CBD literally makes it so he doesn't shake his hands around in his head, you know, because of the Parkinson's. And it's to be able to see that reduction in the things that he's experiencing is so powerful, man. And that's just one example of all of the things that as a culture we're waking up to. We're remembering an ancient side of ourselves when humanity was connected and when people listened to each other and when there wasn't war and there wasn't contention and there wasn't greed and there wasn't... We're remembering the true nature of humans, because I do not fundamentally believe that the true nature is the state of the world today. I fundamentally believe the true nature of humanity is harmony. And I personally feel that's what we're headed towards.
Yeah, and I think we can see it right now today. But I mean, I think that's about all that we had to cover today in today's podcast.
Peace and love for the world, you guys. Bitcoin, crypto is a great foundation for us to head towards world harmony.
And we're starting to see it really being implemented full force, and you know, we have an opportunity to jump in and make a bunch of profits, and all that is really great, and we appreciate all of that. However, we got to understand that, you know, all of what this is about to change is going to completely revolutionize the world. People that have never had the means to survive and really had to struggle their whole lives are now going to be in a comfortable state. And, you know, it's going to create a new set of issues, and it's also going to create so much abundance throughout. You know, it's exciting to be able to have all you guys here a part of this, being able to just ride that journey together, because we're extremely passionate about this and we've been behind this for a while. So this podcast is really just to spread that awareness, show everybody that aside from making a bunch of money and aside from investing in this digital assets, this is going to be changing so much more, and we actually have a great opportunity of being the part of that change that really does, inspires all of the future generations to come. And so it's a good time to be a part of this right now.
Huge opportunity, super thankful. It's the biggest blessing we could have ever asked for. And we look forward to seeing you guys in the next podcast next week. As always, stay profitable out there.